What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So, first 2 weeks are done. The Falcons are 2-0. First time we started 2-0 in 6 years. Got 2 very nice wins to start up the season at home. We took care of business week 1 against Carolina. And last week, we got a crazy comeback win against Green Bay. So now, after the first 2 weeks of being home, we've been comfortable. We've just been laying back and getting those wins. It's time to take this show on the road, man. We go up to Detroit. We face the Detroit Lions, a team who has a lot of hype surrounding it. They beat the defending world champion Kansas City Chiefs on opening night. Lost last week at home in their home opener to the Seahawks. They are 1-1. Falcons are 2-0. It's a good early NFC matchup to see both of these two teams. And there's a lot to look at in this preview. A lot to discuss when looking at this game. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So the injury report. Now, this is going to be a big part of this video, is the injuries. For the Falcons, not so much. Obviously, as you can see, it's all clear basically for the Falcons. The only one who didn't practice, Calais Campbell, he's the old guy. He gets rest. We know that. All it is with Calais Campbell, we'll see you on game day. That's pretty much it. Troy Anderson, he was in concussion protocol last week. He's back, fully practicing. Jeff Okudah, we have not seen him play this season yet. That foot injury, he is back. He looks like he is on track to make his season debut this Sunday in Detroit against the team that drafted him 3rd overall. So obviously that's great for Atlanta. We got no injuries. CP is back. He's going to be making his season debut Sunday. And we get the Joker to the Falcons offense. We finally get our Joker card. But Detroit, on the other hand, is a complete 180. Everyone is injured for Detroit. And now, there were some full participations in practice for Detroit, some lingering injuries. Their center, Frank Ragnow, he had a toe injury. He's fully back in practice. Antoine Green, receiver, concussion. He's fully back in practice. But now here's where it really starts to get dicey. Josh Reynolds, who is one of Jared Goff's targets that he really likes, limited practice with a groin. Now, I would probably be willing to say he probably does play Sunday. I don't know necessarily what the severity of his injury is, but I think they're definitely going to try to make a push for him to play Sunday. Now, we're looking at these did not practice. Offensive tackle Taylor Decker with an ankle injury. He didn't practice today. Big starting offensive lineman. Safety Kirby Joseph. He's a big piece in the back half of that Detroit defense. He didn't practice with a hip injury. David Montgomery, a big one. This is the guy. This is obviously Detroit has Jahmyr Gibbs, who we're going to talk about a little later. David Montgomery has been that guy so far for them this season, running the football. He had a big part to play in that game against Kansas City. He did not practice with a thigh injury, and it does not look like he's going to be playing Sunday. Emmanuel Mosley, corner, knee, hamstring. That is big. My guess is he very well might not play Sunday, especially noting it is a knee and hamstring. Probably the biggest one on this list, Amon-Ra St. Brown, young superstar in the making for the Detroit Lions, did not practice with a toe injury. Now, I definitely think they're going to try to make a push for him to play this week, because if they are without him, that is a big piece going to the Lions offense. That is the biggest piece that they have, you can argue, to that Detroit offense for Jared Goff. So the fact that he is even on this injury list, much rather he did not even practice today on Wednesday, that is big. That could be a big loss for the Detroit Lions. And offensive lineman Vatae, I'm not even going to try to say that first name. Knee injury, He did not practice today. So for the Falcons, it looks all clear. But for the Lions, it's the exact opposite. And this is the first thing we're going to talk about. How are these injuries going to affect this game? David Montgomery and Amon-Ra St. Brown, who we saw on the injury report. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who you could definitely argue, even though he's only played 2 games for Detroit, is already maybe the biggest piece outside of Aiden Hutchinson on that entire Lions defense. He is you can really call him one of the hearts and souls of that Lions team. He had the entire stadium wearing ski masks last week. He is already out. You didn't even see him on this injury report. I think he already went on IR. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he got injured last week against Seattle. He's on the injury report. David Montgomery, same thing. It doesn't look like Montgomery's going to play. These injuries could very well play a big part in this game. Because when let's look at it last week for Green Bay. They were missing Christian Watson and Aaron Jones, the 2 biggest pieces to their offense. That affected them late in that game. They did not have those safety valves to go to. And that's why they only got 11 yards on offense in the 4th quarter. The Falcons just straight took advantage of that. If the Bears do not have their 2 veteran pieces on offense, that is going to be a big problem going up against a Falcons defense that is hungry and is capable of terrorizing opposing teams. I know we haven't seen it much so far, but it can happen. If the Falcons, in which they will, if our defense starts to put it together, which, I mean, everything is not going to be gelled in until about the midway point of the season. But as the defense now, we're in week 3, it's starting to come together. If you're missing those 2 pieces, Ryan Nielsen is going to find ways to take advantage of that. And also the fact Josh Reynolds is injured too, and you don't have Jameson Williams because he's suspended, big loss. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, big loss, especially when you're discussing a guy like Kyle Pitts, who, if you really look at it, teams love to blanket depending on what the situation might be. They might put their corner on him. They might put a safety on him. C.J. Gardner-Johnson probably would have had a big part in covering Kyle Pitts this game. He is out now. Kirby Joseph is on the injury report. He did not practice today. Those are big losses all around for Detroit. But the game has to go on one way or another. And there are still pieces on that Lions team that we might not even know about, but football is a next man up sport. And that is the way you have to look at it. Overall, just now getting more in depth to this matchup, getting away from the injuries for a moment. These are clearly 2 teams that are heading on the upward trajectory, kind of in the same direction and heading down very similar paths. These are 2 teams that obviously, when looking at their history, they do not have the most favorable histories. The Falcons, we all know. The Lions, they've not been to the playoffs they haven't won a playoff game in 30 years. I think the last time they went to the playoffs was like 7 years ago. The Falcons haven't been to the playoffs in 6. These are 2 teams that they're getting it right. It's supposedly at the same time. These are 2 teams with playoff aspirations, 2 teams that have studded young cores with quarterbacks that might not be superstars, but both teams hope can get the job done on a week-to-week basis. So when looking at it, these 2 teams in their philosophies, how they're set up, not too far apart from each other. But these are 2 teams headed in the up direction. And this could be, as the years go on, if these teams continue to improve, maybe it's not just this matchup. You might see future matchups with the Falcons and Lions that have more at stake. But we're talking about this week 3. This can have a lot at stake. You could be talking about playoff seeding down the road. You can be talking about all sorts of things with the Falcons and Lions. But you have to keep in mind, this game is in Detroit. It's in Ford Field. And I know the Lions lost last week, but those fans are still amped up about that Lions team. And let me tell you something. We saw the Bins get pumped up and loud. I was a part of it the past 2 weeks. Ford Field can get very, very loud when the Lions are good and they have that stadium rocking. And especially the fact they lost last week. The Lions now, they are focused again. This time last week, they were coming off that big win against Kansas City. I am honestly under the impression Detroit was not focused as much. But now the fact that they've lost, even with all these injuries, they are a focused football team. They are looking to get back in that win column, and the Falcons are looking to stay undefeated. That on paper should make this look like a good matchup. But one of the key elements of this matchup, I think you obviously have to say, is the trenches. Both of these teams are really built, and their heartbeat runs right through the trenches. Obviously, the Falcons have one of the best run block, maybe the best run block and goal line besides Philadelphia in all of football. They have the best scorer in football with Chris Lindstrom, a stellar offensive tackle in Jake Matthews, who has been here for nearly 10 years. An offensive line that has definitely been trending in the right direction. But that Detroit defense led by Aiden Hutchinson can wreak havoc. And when I mean wreak havoc, I mean wreak havoc. Aiden Hutchinson is going to be a problem, especially if you put him on a guy like Caleb McGarry, who I know did a lot better last week, but does struggle with pass blocking. That's going to be an issue. The Falcons' run blocking could be very key this week because this is easily, in my opinion, going to turn into a dogfight very quickly, or at least it could. Both of these teams, in my opinion, they can have the flashy plays on offense. They have the flashy players. Detroit, with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs. St. Brown is injured. We don't know if he'll play. Jahmyr Gibbs looks like he's good to go at this point. The Falcons, Bijan. We saw the big game he had last week. We know when Kyle Pitts is involved, he can be a flashy weapon. Drake London. Both of these teams have weapons, but they also know how to run the football, and they can be very physical. And that is why I say this could very well turn into a dogfight. But this is a big measuring stick for the Falcons nonetheless. You're 2-0. You have 2 nice wins, but at home. You haven't been on the road in nearly 6 weeks. The last time you were on the road was a preseason trip to Miami where you had a couple joint practices with the Dolphins. This is the first time you're on the road where it's the real deal. And I'm going to tell you guys, I understand Detroit has injuries, and that obviously goes into our favor. But this is the first time we've been on the road all year. You really do not think this is kind of, and this is the first time these guys have been on the road in 5-6 weeks. You don't think this is kind of foreign territory for these guys? You don't? I mean, at the end of the day, you're going into a place like Detroit where it's going to be rocking. It's going to be loud. Listen, Desmond Ridder, even though he really settled in last week, the Packers fans had that place rocking on 3rd down with the Go Pack Go. And you could tell it was rattling Desmond Ridder, especially early. If you get rattled early against Detroit this week, I would probably say your chances are not very good of winning this game. Because with Detroit, you have to stay in it for 60 consistent minutes. I understand, and I love the fact that the Falcons are a second-half team. But this is one of those games you're going to have to come at it for all 60 minutes if you are going to win this game. And that is what is really going to make it tough. Just like we've made it tough for teams the past few weeks to come into the Benz and win, the Lions fans are going to make it tough for the Falcons to win in Detroit. And the fact we haven't been on the road in 5-6 weeks, it's going to be kind of rough for our team. We're going to be trying to find our footing. And if we don't come out and we don't come and we're ready to fight for 60 minutes, even with all the Lions injuries, we could be in trouble this game, guys. I'm telling y'all, this is not going to be an easy one to win. But it is definitely one you can obviously win. You can win any game in the NFL. You got to have some keys to victory, though. First one, you have to win that dogfight in the trenches. You have to get pressure on Jared Goff. And I guess this one and the third one we'll talk about kind of go hand in hand. And you have to protect Ritter. That's the thing. The run blocking, I'm not concerned about. I'm not. Because I know we can run block, and I know we're going to get Bijan and Algier and CP involved. But you have to protect Ritter as best as you can. You're probably going to see a lot of double teams on Aiden Hutchinson, but that could open up lanes for other guys on Detroit's defense. Jack Campbell, a guy I really liked coming out the draft this past April. He's a Detroit Lion. He can be a problem for opposing offenses. So you have to be able to contain this Detroit really front seven as much as absolutely possible. And you have to win that battle in the trenches overall if you're going to win this game. Number two, and this goes hand in hand with the run game. I said I'm not concerned about the run game, but you absolutely have to win the time of possession here. You have to keep that ball away from Jared Goff. If you let Jared Goff get into a rhythm and the Falcons offense is looking shaky throughout, we're probably not winning this game. If you let the Lions offense do their thing, whether they have an Amon-Ra St. Brown or not, Jared Goff, I'm telling y'all, he's not Patrick Mahomes, he's not Joe Burrow, he's not Josh Allen, but he is a good quarterback. He is. He can make you pay if you do not do your job on the other side of the ball. We have to be smart with how we run this offense. We're going to have a couple 7-8 minute drives where we're just going to have to pound that rock with not just Bijan, but a Tyler Algier who is absolutely amazing up the middle with a Cordero Patterson. That is how you're going to have to win this game. You're going to have to keep that ball away from Jared Goff. But when the Lions offense does have that ball, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the one we talked about, you have to win the battle in the trenches. You have to contain Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs, just like Bijan Robinson, can be an absolute problem for opposing defenses. I mean, you're talking about a potential superstar. They do not just use Jahmyr Gibbs in the running game. They use him in the passing game. He is a lot like how we use Bijan Robinson. When I think of a Jahmyr Gibbs, I think a lot of an Alvin Kamara, a guy who can make you pay in the run and passing game. Detroit's going to try to get him involved in all kind of ways. And with David Montgomery out, this is his show now. And he's going to have a big part in this game. So if you do not go and contain a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs and you let him go all Sunday, you're probably not winning that game because you're probably not winning this game because of that also. There's a lot of tough elements to this game, and I know it's hard to swallow. I know we're excited about being 2-0. This is our toughest test yet. Week 1, we were facing a rookie Bryce Young and a Carolina team that is absolutely abysmal right now. Week 2, Green Bay, they gave us a run for our money. They just couldn't hold on in the fourth quarter. This Lions team can be the real deal. But if you want to win this game, those are 3 things you absolutely have to do. Now, for what I think is going to happen in this game. I'm first of all going to say I want to be proved wrong. I want the Falcons to go into Detroit and get a very nice win. But I find it very hard, as I said in my weekly picks video, that the Lions are going to lose their first 2 home games this season. This Detroit team is going to bounce back. This is not the same Lions team that we're used to seeing. At least I don't think. Dan Campbell is the real deal as a head coach. Jared Goff, he is a serviceable quarterback. That Lions offense, Jahmyr Gibbs, they can cause havoc. They can kill you with those explosive plays. They can also slowly suck the life out of a game. The Falcons are going to have to come in, and they're going to have to be ready to play physical, hard-mouth football. But as I said, it being our first time on the road this season in the regular season, first time we've been on the road in 5-6 weeks, man, it's going to be a tough one to pull out. I think the Lions win. I think about 26-16. I know it says by 10. I think it probably can be a close game throughout, but I just think Detroit is going to pull away in the end. I want to be wrong. I want the Falcons to go into Detroit. I want to look like an idiot Sunday afternoon. I want people telling me, I told you so. I told you the Falcons were going to start 3-0. But right now, I think even with all the things Detroit is going through, I think the Lions are going to win this game. But I want to be proved wrong. I put a community poll out there. I'm going to let you guys decide if I stream the game or not. I was kind of leaning towards maybe I won't. But if you guys really want me to, I'll give you guys what you want. Once again, hit that subscribe button, post notification bell so you'll know whenever I put out content. And yeah, it's another exciting weekend of football upon us. We're slowly approaching there as these weeks start to go by. So even though I have the Falcons losing, I want to be proved wrong. And boys, go get this win. Go prove me wrong on Sunday. That being said, I'm out.